Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar on Medicines Pipelines, MHRA's new forecasting process. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. You have joined the presentation listening using your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the telephone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions via Slido at www.slido.com using the event code Pipelines24. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. Please note that we will not be accepting questions via the GoToWebinar chat function. It is now my pleasure to introduce your first speaker, Julian Beach, Interim Executive Director of Healthcare Quality and Access Group, MHRA. Over to you, Julian.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon and welcome everybody to a webinar looking at pipelines and pipeline information. I'd like to introduce the presenters for this afternoon, so if I can firstly turn to Stephen.
Hello, I'm Stephen. I head up our new function on pipelines, scientific advice and early access to medicine scheme.
Thank you. Jazz.
Good afternoon. My name is Jazz Singh. I'm head of new active substances in the HQA division.
Harriet.
Hi everybody, my name is Harriet Tier. I'm a Deputy Director in the Partnerships Group.
Perfect. And then what we're looking to do, obviously try to do, is to join up our pipeline information. So it's with great pleasure I ask Stephanie to introduce herself from NICE.
Thanks, Julian. Hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie Callahan. I work in the Medicines Horizon Scanning team, topic selection and scoping at NICE. So nice to meet you all. Hopefully there's some familiar faces out there.
Great, thank you. So as we go through, obviously there's been a significant change and improvement in performance from MHRA over the last calendar year. And where we're looking at now is how do we sustain that and make sure that that is a reliable process going forward. So that what we're looking to outline is how do we would like to interact and get information and work with you all. And to that end, we also want to be seeing how we can potentially pilot activities working with our partners in NICE in looking at joint pipeline meetings and potentially pilot that with appropriate molecules. So as we go through the agenda, Stephen will start and look at some of the information that we are looking to understand to build that broad pipeline information. And that's really essential for us to be able to forecast the demands on the MHRA. And we're looking at least 3 to 5 years out with increasing accuracy as we come into the -6 months and the -3 months from filing from the MHRA's perspective. Jasvinder will then look at the benefits to early engagement. Harriet will then relay some of the health system partnership critical aspects and detail how important that is to us all. And then Stephanie will look at pipeline intelligence from a NICE perspective and how we can all work together on that, looking at that joined up infrastructure. Finally, we will then have a question and answer session. So as has already been previously mentioned, there is a Slido panel where you can submit the questions under the Pipelines 24 Slido name. So thank you very much for your attendance, very much appreciated. If I hand to Stephen, and Stephen can then start taking us through some of the activities.
Of course, thank you, Julian. So thank you all for joining again. I want to go through essentially how this initiative has, I say been born, but more evolve over the period since December when our team was made up. So if we can move to the next slide. Thank you. So this initiative really started moving in January. We've previously been collecting pipeline information as part of the EMA. It was a very formal structure, and now we're building up our own pipeline work. We know that differences in regulatory actions exist between the EMA and UK. So between January and July, we piloted spreadsheet, building up confidence in what industry might want and be able to deliver to us, and having also pipeline meetings to go alongside this. In May time, we got access to UK PharmaScan and have become familiar with the collection of these this data and how we then translate it to what companies give us. But I'll go through a little bit of that later. And obviously in August, we published the guidance page with the downloadable link. The link provides a bit of guidance on what to do, as well as also a spreadsheet to download and submit to us. There is there's no set timeline as to when we want this, and we will be discussing with companies. So please, if you do have any questions, send them into our mailbox, which is pre-submission at mhra.gov.uk, and one of the team will pick up for you. If we can move to the next slide, please. So the process, and this is all detailed on that webpage, and hopefully you've all had a chance to at least look at it. Essentially, step one, download the file, fill in as much detail as you can. There is no such thing as bad information. And we know that everything changes within business, within pipelines, within clinical research. We know that everything changes. So there's going to be absolutely no holding companies to account on what information is given to us. So we ask for as much as possible, as much MAA applications, line extensions, type 2 indications, whether this be via national route, via access, via IRP, our international recognition scheme. We want to know it all. And if possible, and Jazz will detail a bit more of this in engaging with us, where you can predict that scientific advice may be required and where pre-submission meetings might fit in with your plans. And realistically, any additional information in the comments. One thing I would suggest is, please, we have some validations on this Excel sheet that help us with our triaging when it comes to putting it in a master file that we have. If these can be stick to as much as possible, that would be amazing. They should be fairly self-explanatory. And as always, if there are questions, email the email that's on the slide, pre-submission at mhra.gov.uk, and we will pick up and get back to you. And next slide, please. So I mentioned about us using UK PharmaScan, and I know there is a bit of duplication in what we're asking of these new medicines that are coming through. We know that not all products are required to report to UK PharmaScan. We want to know everything that's coming into the agency. It's absolutely vital for us to be able to plan and go through our actions. So we've been doing a bit of, we pull from PharmaScan everything with a MA date coming up over the next 5 years, and we triage this down with what the information we get from companies. Currently, what we're finding is that the information that we get is not in line with the information that's given in UK PharmaScan. And this is either missing applications, additional applications, varying dates up to a year, 2 years to submission. So what we plan on doing is we plan on collecting this data from companies until we are assured that what is being put in UK PharmaScan is accurate and up to date as possible. And when we are assured of that, we will stop asking for it. We'll use the system that is already in place and avoid this duplication. But for now, we know that there are discrepancies being identified, and we'll be asking for this information from companies. And as part of our commitment to this, we are under the redesign of UK PharmaScan. There is an agreement under the VPAG scheme, and we are sitting on that project board. We're feeding in. So if there is any feedback to us about what might make it easier, please also send this in, and we can feed it in as MHRA representation. Next slide, please. So enough about the process. This is what the data has currently told us. So for new active substances, we are seeing an expected return back to pre-pandemic levels, and we are seeing that this is assured for a few years to come. What we have seen is, rather than an expected gradual increase in biological applications compared to chemical applications, we are seeing a step change. And this is something that we've been able to see and react to and build up assessor expertise within the biological section. And these type of step changes, we know that science moves on so quick and continually brings new stuff to market, new stuff to clinical trials, new technologies, potentially disruptive. So the ongoing nature of this collection of data helps us to respond quicker, and I'll detail a bit more of the advantages of this later. But at this point, I just want to say thank you. We think we are quite strong in our predictions for new active substances, and that is based on the information already received from companies and comparing this with what we've seen in previous applications. So I want to say thank you at this stage. With your help, we can build further confidence in this picture. And if we can move on to slide 8. So in the what we've got for generics, or the off-brand sector, we've taken data from the BGMA survey that was conducted in springtime, I believe, and we've extrapolated this back to whoever responded in the survey, and what we're seeing is a gradual increase back again to pre-pandemic levels. For this one, we are less assured. I think that's because we've got less data, and we want to be working towards greater assurance in this, so that we can have greater assurance in our ability to deliver. And as part of this, I've already been in discussions with the BGMA leadership about potentially having a workshop when, for example, we are confident in the input into UK PharmaScan. We can work with BGMA and the industry to make this data collection really applicable for generics, really easy, as easy as possible, and we can then build that confidence up. So yeah, we will be doing that in the future, so keep an eye out. And if we can move on to slide 9. So really trying to get across here how this data collection helps us. So when we are talking up to 5 years out from submission, we're identifying technologies, transformative technologies. We are anticipating the amount of resource that is required to deliver when it comes down to submission. We know that what comes in at 5 years is not going to be what is delivered at the end. We know that clinical trials are give up different results than we were expecting. So ongoing refresh updates to these are vital, and we will do what we can with web scraping and taking stuff off, but we need the industry's input into what we are doing. When it comes to 6 months out from submission, we know there is a lot more certainty about what is coming through. We want then have this 6 months absolutely nailed down. This is what we think is going to happen. We know there's still going to be some variances in that. Things will get changed. There'll be readouts that change things. There'll be companies buying other companies, acquisitions and divestments. We know this will happen. So again, we're not going to hold anyone to account at this stage. 3 months out from submission, for new actives, for new indications, we want to be having a pre-submission notification. And this is something that, again, we'll speak to in Jazz's section later about what we're doing to help industry with that. It's, for us, we need to know 3 months out so that we can allocate a team, so that we can get going from validation on day one, start the assessments. That's what everyone needs. And with that, we can then have more confidence in delivering a timely first assessment, and then even more confidence then to have the statutory timelines for decisions. Having this information from 5 years out will enable us to do this. We'll have the right training in place. We'll have the right, ideally have the right numbers of assessment teams so that we are able to deliver confidently to our statutory timelines. And I've put this 6 weeks from submission bit in there. That is when we will have teams lined up and ready, knowing that a submission date is coming up. If we can move on to slide 10, please. So what we're doing with this data. Currently, we get this in terms of these are the active substance, this is the route that's going down, or this is an indication extension or a line extension. And what we're doing is tying these to the estimated time taken for an assessor to do these, and that's in terms of assessment days, and then building a picture of how much overall resource we need. And you'll have seen this in, we started doing this with biological products, and we are building our biological assessor capacity as part of these, as a result of the data that we've obtained. What else it will give us is identify transformative technologies, identify where we see something different that our assessment teams may not have seen before. We can get training, we can upskill, we can find the right people to be able to pick these up and confidently, expertly assess the products. What this does in the wider picture, we can build and train a real expert assessment workforce to build on what we already have, the expertise that we have in the agency. And we can look to the future, we can plan, we have ideally a flexible 2 years in advance, we know roughly what's going to come in, we can build a certain level of risk around this, and we can have the teams in place to start assessments, which comes under our government responsibility of managing public finances. We are mapping also the expertise needed and the types of applications to the fees, and being able to work out a cost recovery model that will help us in the long run to sustain our efforts. And all of this, ideally, will make the regulatory processes smooth, efficient, and most importantly, predictable in our timelines, so that we can get the right medicines to patients as quick as possible. And this is also in the off-patent sector. We need to ensure this. We know there's a rising number of supply issues. We've seen this across the last few years, and we want to be able to do our best to support DHSC and NHS England in these matters. If we can move on to the next slide. So if I can hand over to Jazz, who will talk through some of the benefits to early engagement, and then I'll come back for a little bit to discuss how we are making this easier for you. So Jazz.
Thank you, Stephen. So my presentation today is on the benefits of early engagement with the MHRA. So early engagement with stakeholders is key to allow us to plan, perform, and to deliver the best service we can, and to the timelines that we say we will deliver to. What this means for our stakeholders is that we can provide a predictable performance. We welcome receiving information via PharmaScan, as this is the most helpful to us. But there are other ways of engaging with us too. One of the ways that MHRA can do this is by having early engagement in meetings and discussions of product pipelines. The purpose of these pipeline meetings is to inform us on what is coming through, from early clinical trials, SAMs, to EAMS, ILAPs, and marketing authorization applications. The pipeline submission information provided should relate to any approval pathway we have in place, such as national submissions via Access Consortium, Project Orbis, or IRP. The information gathered allows us to plan ahead about the resources and capabilities we need to deliver for our stakeholders, both in the short, medium, and long term. And this is a key deliverable to us after a few challenging years. It gives us intelligence on what the future pipeline of drug submissions looks like and helps us answer questions such as what areas do we need to focus our capabilities on, allows us to target training for our assessors. An important aspect of early engagement with us relates to scientific advices. On a yearly basis, we receive around 300 requests for scientific advice. And from our perspective, the earlier you engage with us in your clinical trials and your product development via scientific advice meetings or ILAP, that ensures our thinking on big issues are aligned on before starting clinical trials and the MAA submissions, and can lead to procedures conclude without being prolonged by major objections and result in marketing authorizations obtained faster. We also hold pre-submission meetings with companies for national new active substance submissions 90 days prior to submission. This allows us to plan ahead and ensure there are no regulatory pathway barriers in the way. We also hold joint SAMs with NICE that offer stakeholders joined up thinking across the health system, not just looking at product approval, but NICE appraisal considerations as well. So in conclusion, engage with us early and be as transparent as possible, whether that's a pipeline meeting, pharma scan, scientific advice, or pre-submission meeting, to ensure that you are as successful as you can be, as early as you can be. And if we don't reach out to you, please do reach out to us. And we don't want this information only for new active substance drugs. We also want this information for generic products, as you may wish to submit to us. This can save time to approval and to patient access, and should be seen as a strategic tool that will help companies move their products forward. Our aim and goal is to help each other for the benefits of patients in the UK. Thank you.
Thank you, Jazz. And if we can move on to the next slide, I'm just going to go through a few slides here of what we're doing to help you with this. We know there is a lot of ways to engage with the health sector. So we want to try and make this easy and seamless as possible. So as mentioned, our pre-submission mailbox, pre-submission team was made in December last year. 6 months ago, we also added this new pre-submission mailbox so that it's clear what it's for, so pre-submission. And we've had a higher degree of confidence of pre-submission requests coming in. What we've done is uploaded a new page to be able to explain the pre-submission process and the requirements. And I think either this week or next week, it's currently with our web update team, we are updating this page to give a lot more granular information about what's happening. We are hoping to get line extensions, significant new indications, biosimilars, and particularly complex generic applications, and also complex IRP Route B applications that we see coming in. We want to be able to get these 3 months in advance and then give the right advice, whether this be in a pre-submission meeting or in written guidance or pointing towards the correct guidelines. We want to get the best advice to you, and this is the way we're doing it. So we strongly advise you engage with this page. So if you search pre-submission MHRA, it should come up as one of your first things in any search tool. Another element that we're doing, if we move on to the next slide, please, is, and this is something that is to come in Q4, is we are digitizing our SAM form. So such the same as you would go through a Gov UK to find your car tax, We are using the same style form. It should be familiar to a lot of you, and really walking you through the scientific advice page. What we're trying to get to with scientific advice is early engagement. If you know that you are going to want scientific advice for example, a pivotal study, you know when you might want that and when it suits better. Engage with us early, get meetings booked in, and then provide us the details later on, or the finer details later on. And hopefully this form will allow you to do that. Hopefully it is user-friendly and applicable for everyone. We will, of course, be accepting feedback on the scientific advice form when it goes out. We've gone through, I think, 2 or 3 public engagement rounds with this. We've targeted scientific advice stakeholders to build this form and to run through the entire thing. And it's currently in build stage with our digital teams, and hopefully be released. We will be sending out comms when it is released. So look forward to this, and we of course will accept feedback at the end. And this is just the start of a few changes that we're doing with scientific advice. So I think that's all for me, and if I can pass on to Harriet.
Hi, yes, thank you very much. So I just wanted to situate this within some of the work that we're doing more broadly in partnerships, and to flag and emphasise our commitments to partnership working. So the Partnerships Division, as I'm sure you're aware, was set up almost 3 years ago, placing more of a focus on how we're working with key stakeholders, both nationally and internationally. Within partnerships, we also have responsibilities for policy and for regulatory reform. And again, this is sort of recognising the value of our discussions that we're having with stakeholders across the national and international community, because we need to make sure that our plans in-house are fitting well with other plans that are relevant. Within our national work very specifically, we're thinking very carefully about how we align across the pathway, understanding the specific role that MHRA plays in the pathway to enabling patients to access new treatments, and what our focus on sort of safe and effective development of medicines, how that then fits across the rest of the pathway. And this touches on work that we're doing with NICE, with NHS England, and also across the devolved administrations as well, with our UK-wide focus. So it's really important for us within this space to think how we can best align and partner with these stakeholders, and to think about how what we are doing interacts and impacts their work, often slightly further down that pathway. So this discussion that we're having here is a really useful and valuable opportunity for us to further some of that thinking. And as the next slide will show you, this commitment to thinking about how we work alongside and across our health system partners features within our business plan, and is a real focus for us on thinking about this enablement of access to new, safe and effective products, and what that then means to usefully collaborate. And I think that's all I need to talk about right now, so I'm handing back to Stephen.
Yes, thank you, Harriet. So we have this morning actually had, yeah, if we can go to the next slide, sorry. We have had our colleagues from NICE come down and be in the room with us, and we've workshopped how, or I would say why and how we can get joint pipeline meetings between us. So we have decided on having a pilot where we pick between 3 and 5 companies to target, and to really get into what the system benefits from this initiative. We know the meetings that we have are important. The data that we collect are very important, and we will of course be carrying on with our engagement separately, but then also investigating how we can do this together. So it's a really, really fruitful discussion this morning, quite honest and open. and I am really looking forward to launching this potentially in the new year when we've got everything lined up. So Steph, I'll hand over to Steph, who'll be able to speak to the NICE involvement.
Cheers, thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Harriet. Good afternoon, everybody. So I really want to express how invaluable the regular pipeline meetings that NICE has with industry currently are. So our medicines planning operations team hold regular meetings with a number of companies, and there may be some people listening and watching today who've benefited from these interactions with myself and some of my colleagues in the past, or not so recent, distant past as well. The information and intelligence that we share during these meetings is really important and ultimately supports the success of our technology appraisal, TA, and highly specialised technologies, HST, programme planning. The conversations that we have are always confidential, treated with strict confidentiality, but they're also usually quite informal and led by the companies. Also, when medicines are eligible for a TA or a HST evaluation, the planning and operations team will ask companies about the feasibility and timelines for a NICE evaluation. And we found that asking this question as early as possible has really benefited our capacity and resource planning. And that's something that we're keen to build on and build on this approach with MHRA. So as Stephen alluded to, through the pilot with MHRA, we want to develop a more structured conversations to enhance and strengthen the quality and accuracy of information sharing, not only for NICE, MHRA, but also for industry. And it's really important that NICE is aligned with the MHRA and continues to understand the nuances of licensing timelines and the things that can impact that for different medicines products, and the wider impact it has on NICE evaluations. And so through that working relationship, we want to develop system alignment and enhance our working relationship further. So as Stephen said, it's something that I'm really excited to get involved in, and I think it will benefit us all, and it'll be something to kind of really get our teeth stuck into. So I'm looking forward to it. I just wanted to really say how invaluable we found at the pipeline meetings and the way we work at the moment, which will continue to support that programme planning.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for attending. We've absolutely flown through that and got through all the questions. I don't think I've been in one of our webinars where we've gotten through all the questions. So thank you all for coming. And if I can pass across, I think, to our hosts.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jazz. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar. Once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey on the presentation, and we would appreciate if you could complete that and provide your feedback. You will also receive a follow-up email in the coming weeks with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. On behalf of the MHRA and our presenters, thank you all for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.